and welcome back to another Gration Generation Games podcast. This is the place you'll hear the view from me, Harvey Gration.
And the older and much wiser Harry Gration.
The man who thinks he knows it all.
I think I probably do as well, because I've only got to look at sport now and have my own perspective, which conflicts totally with anything that you believe.
So, today we'll inaugurate with the Premier League title race. Or not so cutthroat and vying as we thought it was. Liverpool 3, Manchester City 1.
Well, that was a fantastic performance by Liverpool. You've got to turn around and say, though, there were a couple of issues here that determined this. VAR was a disaster. There was the clearest cut penalty that I think I've ever seen, and it wasn't given. And then, of course, Liverpool go and score at the other end. And then there was a later penalty that was turned down as well. The problem is, of course, that the title race is over now, as far as Man City are concerned. They cannot catch Liverpool. I think Liverpool will go through the season undefeated unless they decide to put in a second-rate team when they haven't got...
well, this is the thing. Yeah. When the Champions League comes, and
yes,
as we are approaching the winter period now, where there's up to 3 games a week, and Liverpool have a very, very tough schedule coming up. They have the UEFA Club Cup, and then games straight after that in the League Cup, etc. And they have games.
League Cup, well, they can put the reserve in.
But they have games the 2 days in a row. They have games, and this is the start of a very busy period for Liverpool. And there comes a point in every team's season where they do struggle. But 9 points clear. It's so hard for Manchester City to come again after the international break. It's Liverpool's title to lose. And in fairness to City, they did play quite well, and they never really get any luck at Anfield.
No,
That
they
penalty
don't.
decision should have been a penalty.
I think that's absolutely true. Is that I thought Man City could easily have got themselves at least a point there, and a bit more probably. But the VAR decision went against them. The fact is, though, you can turn around and say it's Liverpool's to lose. They can't lose it. They're too good. And
I don't think you'll find a Liverpool fan who says that.
Well, I think Guardiola would absolutely admit it as well. They're miles ahead. The race now is not for the top 4, because we know the top 4 is sorted. It's for who's going to finish 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, where Arsenal will be 10th.
Well, let's carry on with the Liverpool-Manchester City game. The Bernardo Silva penalty, where it appeared to strike his hand before striking Trent Alexander-Arnold's. What Klopp was trying to say is, if Bernardo Silva has scored, the goal would have been chalked off because you can't control the ball for an attacking player in the process of the build-up. But he didn't score, so that law doesn't stand, and it's clearly striked Arnold's arm, which he's moved into the way of the ball. And the whole game, I think, actually epitomised problems starting to come for Guardiola at Man City. In my opinion, they don't have any leaders since Kompany's gone to the Anderlecht as player-manager.
Yeah, agreed with that.
David Silva, I don't think, is a leader. And when you see Fernandinho as captain, although he might be a leader, he certainly didn't get any help playing out of position at centre-back. And Aguero, who has never scored at Anfield in his whole professional career. So the result, on top of all things that happened, was kind of inevitable with the Anfield atmosphere. It's really infectious, and for the games that Liverpool have been 2-0 up in now, they've played 232 games and won 227 of them without losing.
They're a fantastic side. He's the best manager in Europe. Guardiola is the second best manager in Europe. I feel that basically there's just been a parting of the waves this season. There is no weak link in the Liverpool side. When they've got their full strength squad, there's no weak link. They've got the best goalkeeper, they've got the best centre-half in the country, they've got the best strikers in the country, and the best midfield as well.
Well, yeah, you see, Van Dijk has obviously been immense, but Matip has been outplaying him this season, even though he's injured at the moment. You have Henderson flourishing in his new role in the midfield 3, which works so well together. They've got so much depth in that position. The formation works well with players because Klopp's bought what he wants. And they've obviously got the relentless front 3. But Guardiola has to take a little bit of the blame, especially for this, because he played Angelino at left back, who was playing for PSV last season, completely out of his depth, when he had Mendy, a £50 million left back, not even in the squad. Cancelo, £60 million, who's a right back, can play left back on the bench.
But there is a kind of disease that's going on in the Premier League, because Guardiola makes some incredible defensive mistakes. Arsenal manager doesn't know what a defence is anyway. And there are quite a few other teams that have the same problem. The best defence in the Premier League is who?
Sheffield United.
Sheffield United. They've got the best manager.
Sheffield and Leicester.
They've got the most incredible spirit that they have. And with Liverpool sort of cruising now for the next 6 months to the title, which will be effectively over by January, February. I think it's a bit of a boring Premiership, to be honest.
I think Manchester City, on the back four that they had, Kyle Walker has lost it completely. Yep. Same with John Stones.
I agree.
Claudio Bravo is a bit of a joke in goal. And then they have an out-of-position Fernandinho who tries his best, who's a great defensive midfield player, not a centre-back, and Angelino. That's at best a mid-table back four that they had there. And with, you got to say, over 150 million spent on full-backs and defenders, Guardiola's got a little bit to answer for there.
Yeah, he definitely has, I agree. And I think there'll be a real look at the fabric of Manchester City from January onwards. He'll buy somebody to try and strengthen the team, and of course they've got more money than sense, so they'll be able to do things.
Going from the top of the table to the bottom, Norwich are in dire straits.
They're
Watford, who have been slowly rebuilding under Sanchez Flores without making a huge stir since the battering at Man City. They beat Norwich 2-0. I think Norwich will go down. And
Absolutely.
You look at Watford now, they're on 8 points, 17th place Aston Villa on 11 points. It's not looking as bad for them now.
No, but I think you're absolutely right about Norwich. I think they're really struggling. It's funny because they started so well, didn't they? They looked vibrant, but a friend of mine who works with me says the problem they've got is that they've got injuries to 3 of their centre-backs.
They've got 7 defenders, including goalkeepers.
And that
injured.
might well be the reason they're in trouble at the moment. But you get to a point when you get so far behind you can't catch up.
Yeah, the most important thing is when you're in a relegation battle is to have a system that you can believe in. And what Sanchez Flores has done, he's playing 3 at the back now. And although the 2 strikers have varied, he's getting the best out of De La Feu, who's their star man by far. And Etienne Capoue has been vital in that because he's allowed Doucouré to have some licence, and same with Will Hughes. And Burnley and Southampton are their next 2 fixtures, so it's more opportunity to pick up points for them. Norwich replaced Watford at the bottom with that loss, who, like we said, are in dire straits along with Southampton.
I think Southampton are the other ones that I would say are certainties to go down at the moment. The third one, well, I think that one's probably up for grabs at the moment.
Well, yeah, Southampton are definitely struggling. Hasenhüttl, I really like him as a manager, and you can see what he wants to do. But you've got to, although you want to have a structure, like we were saying at the bottom of the table, it's got to be realistic. And with the players that Hasenhüttl has at his disposal, they're very average players.
Agreed.
And he's quite stubborn as a manager, and he's going to have to turn things around pretty quickly from his rigid style at the moment.
He won't have much time left. They'll only give him till probably the end of December at the very latest, and then we know that there'll be a raft of managerial changes. I can see 4 or 5 going.
In terms of managers who you would have thought would have been under pressure, Steve Bruce at Newcastle seems to have turned a corner. Yeah. They're 13th now, 3 wins on the bounce. They beat Bournemouth 2-1. And although the defenders are scoring all the goals, you see Almiron with no goals or assists since he joined. Sant Maxim is the same, but he's definitely got a talent. And Joelinton with only 1 goal against Spurs. They are, in a way, flying. And there's a lot of room to be positive, although Bruce is not the long-term manager. All he can do is perform well, and he's doing that at the moment. So, another club possibly in crisis, West Ham. They lost 3-0 at Burnley.
Well, you've got to say they're in crisis because they spent a fortune to try and...
Every summer they spend a lot.
They spent a lot of money, and they are looking a very, very average team, I'm afraid. That is probably one of the biggest disappointments in the Premier League for the neutral, really, because you looked at that side and you think there's some quality players there, but they just not.
Well, this
gelling.
is the thing. A lot of money has been spent on their back line.
Money doesn't buy success.
They've got on paper a terrific front line. Haller's only scored 4 goals, 2 of which were at bottom of the table Watford at that time. Felipe Anderson hasn't scored yet, and he's their talisman. Fornals, their new signing, hasn't scored. He's only created 1 big chance. And then if you look at in midfield, you have Noble and Wilshere who are injured, and then Rice is a shadow of his former self, and then you have Carlos Sanchez, who hasn't played a game in 14 months, as their only other midfielder.
And you've got to ask questions, as everybody does at this stage. When you're a fan, you say, that side is a good side, it should be a lot better, what's gone wrong? And I look at the body chemistry from the manager, and I see a man who thinks, I can't make this work.
I see a man who's definitely past his time. You see, from his final season at Man City, it was like, it's like the same now. It's very passive and dull, listless football, and he's under huge pressure because they're 16th in the table and West Ham should not be 16th. Flipping it over to Burnley, they've seemed to hit a little bit more form now, and when you have a winger like McNeil, who's the perfect Burnley winger, he puts loads of balls into the box, beats your man, and when you have Wood and Barnes in the middle, they won't have too many complaints at all.
The thing about Burnley is that they have defied the odds for so many years now. I'm sure they will stick by their manager for as long as they can, because he's done a terrific job there with very little resources. And I think that their style of football is gritty, it's determined, and they remind me a lot of Sheffield United, because when Burnley came up, they were exactly that. They just wanted to fight for their manager above all and do everything they could for him. That's exactly what Sheffield United are doing, with of course better results, because they're sixth or seventh.
Well, this is the thing, because Burnley are starting to evolve now and play better football. And you see Sheffield, who are already starting to do that. They had a 1-1 draw at Spurs. I don't quite know how they didn't win that game. VAR again. John Lundstrom's toe was deemed to be offside in the build-up to McGoldrick's disallowed goal. It was ridiculous, because they should take a lesson from cricket's book and do the on-field decision when things are that close, because it's frames per second. It's not as soon as he touches the ball. So he could have been onside in another frame when his ball's still in contact.
I think everybody knows that VAR is under review and will be refined, but some of the decisions recently have made it into a laughing stock, and the game of football is a laughing stock. I think I would almost get to the point of saying, let's suspend it until we get it right.
Well, you've got to either change now or get rid of it, because they've gone the other way with decisions where they're turning too many over now.
Exactly.
And it's just incompetence. Mike Riley, the chief of VAR, has to get someone in the box who has played football and knows what it's like, especially for the penalty decisions. And the embarrassing bit and the humiliating bit is, it's not, some of the decisions aren't hard decisions, and they've really got to sort something out or abolish it, get rid of it. Sheffield United, though, in the Spurs game, it's the contrasting sides, isn't it? Spurs are a side in crisis as well. They're sitting 12th in the league. If you look at Sheffield, they're organised and vibrant when they go forward, and Spurs are rather ragged and quite clueless. They've got a huge problem at fullback. Aurier has had his doubters and he's proving them right. Davies was poor, and Rose wants to leave at the end of his 18th-month contract. And then if you look at Sheffield United, of course, 5th in the league now. It's the tale of two sides.
It's a fantastic achievement from a fantastic manager, with a background of support for him. There's a big takeover bid going on at the moment, and the ownership of that won't be resolved for another 6 months or so. But Chris Wilder has been the inspiration behind Sheffield United's wonderful football that they've played, the best defence, and that sends a message out to so many clubs. Get your defence right and you can win matches. You can get yourself up in the top 6. If you haven't got a defence, forget it. You're mid-table or bottom.
Well, this is the thing. If you have quality defenders and maybe a quality central midfield player, it's the basis of a really, really good side. And Chris Wilder as a manager has a system that really works, and then Pochettino is the other end at the moment. Spurs don't really know what they're doing. He's under huge pressure. I don't think Levy, although he will have told Pochettino he's under pressure, I don't think he'll get rid of him now for what Pochettino has done. But if you look at the performances now, there's nothing in there to say Pochettino is the right man to take the club forward.
So let's just develop that argument. The managers under threat at the moment then are Pellegrini, Pochettino, and
Emery, certainly, and we'll get onto that definitely later. One more thing, or a couple more things before we go on to Arsenal. Chelsea continue their momentum.
Brilliant.
They beat Palace 2-0. Frank Lampard is a manager at the other end of the spectrum. He's just loving life.
Yeah, but he's gone there. Nobody expected him to do very much. He said, right, I'll give the kids a chance. And the thing is that the kids have actually produced the goods every single week.
It's the perfect conditions for him in a weird way with the transfer ban, because you have these kids who completely look up and idolise Frank Lampard as a hero at Chelsea, who they will go out, whatever he tells them, and play and play and play. They have so much licence, and it probably gives energy to the older players who were underperforming. If you see people like Willian now, who was a lot of criticism after he was given the number 10, he's excelling now, and he's building a case for his new contract in the summer, and Lampard's praised him highly. And they're exciting going forward, they're progressive. Pulisic, Hudson-Odoi, Willian and Abraham up front, any of those three you'll be happy with in
Absolutely.
any team at the moment. And at the back, Reece James, who's maybe even displaced Cesar Azpilicueta now. He's coming of age, especially against Zaha in the Palace game. Zaha did absolutely nothing. Moving on, the resurgence maybe at Manchester United. Well, not definitely. They're still sitting 7th in the league and 9 points off the top 4. But they've seemed to pick up a little bit of momentum, beating Brighton 3-1. They're playing better football now, Manchester United. Definitely with the help of Martial coming back. He's kind of given Rashford a bit of liberty, and Martial himself and Rashford have really been thriving. You see Rashford scoring 6 goals in 6 games now.
I think Man United are definitely a top 6 side. I've always said that. Top 4 is beyond them, but top 6 they'll certainly achieve that, and they'll strengthen. We know in January they're going to spend big in January to try and help.
Well, as you said yourself, spending isn't the way to go always, and Man United still have a hell of a lot of work to do to kind of turn it around, because...
But top 6 for Man United is totally unacceptable.
If we're forgetting top 6, if we look at their team, their midfield, they're going to struggle with creativity this season. That is something they have struggled with, and without Pogba, who is coming back soon, but it's still going to be a few weeks out, and rehab and all that. They have Fred, who's failed. McTominay, who's been very good this season, but isn't creative. He scored 4 goals, but that's it. And you have Pereira, who's their most creative midfield outlet, who is so inconsistent, especially away from home. He can't really settle on the ball. But they've got okay defensive unit. Maguire is captained in Man United for the 2nd time now, and when you've got De Gea, who's got leadership skills as well, then things are looking up in terms of that, but there's still a very, very long way to go for Manchester United. And Brighton, on the other hand, they're doing very well as well. They're, 9th or 10th now?
Exactly.
So they've got reason to be happy after quite a poor and inconsistent start to the season. Right, to finish now, we're going to finish with probably a lengthy one at this rate. Arsenal.
Well, what can you say about Arsenal? That their performance against Leicester was pathetic. If they'd have been beaten 6-0, nobody would have worried about it. I am just in despair at their defence. I think they've got nothing in midfield, and I know you rate Aubameyang and Lacazette, and I just think they are ordinary players. Full stop.
Well,
there's
no.
I'm sorry. I'm going to finish this because the quality of a top striker is when he can score goals against teams that matter, not the tiddly ones at the bottom. It's the teams that matter. And Aubameyang never scores against Liverpool. He never scores against the Leicester City, for example, who are now a top team. Does he ever score against Spurs? Yeah, he did last time and missed a penalty, didn't he?
But he does have as good a record against Spurs as Harry Kane, to be honest. But you can't. I don't think you can blame Lacazette or Aubameyang at all when you see the type of team and system that they're playing in. I'm not going to blame them at all when you have a manager who we used to have one in Wenger that doesn't care about the opposition at all, and that can have its flaws, but it's definitely positive when you have Wenger as a manager who wouldn't care about the opposition. He's set up in a good style of football to take the game to the other team, and now you have a manager who worries so much about the other team and sets up in such a pragmatic, rigid, boring style of football that you can't. There's no excuse for it, really. And I don't care what you say about Aubameyang and Lacazette, because I think it is clear Emery is scared of the opposition, and Aubameyang and Lacazette will have agitation to sign the new deals at the moment because they will know they can do so much better at clubs in a better state at the moment, and they'll know they'll be top of the scoring charts because they're both world-class strikers. The problem isn't easily fixed, but I don't think it's as bad as you put it, because I think a new manager will invigorate the style and the players. So what do you think has to change at Arsenal Football Club to get us playing entertaining football again? Forget anything else.
Well, they need 3 new players. And we've said this all the way along the line. They need a beast of a centre-half. How many times have I been droning on to you about that? That's been needed for the last 4 years. Nothing's been done about it. Holding clearly isn't good enough. I thought he might be, but he's not. As for this one that they've signed in France, well, who knows how good he is, because he's playing in a very poor league, so we'll have to see what he's like when he's playing in the top league.
He's been very good this season, Salino.
Yeah, but in a poor league.
Oh yeah, and I do totally agree with that, but he is 18.
Okay.
And
midfield,
very
we've
well.
got nothing. Ozil, it's good to see him being given a run because he's the creative player, but obviously with Xhaka going, almost certainly, Torreira is not made.
It looks like Xhaka does not have a future at the club yet, and in terms of transfer rumours, it's a little bit early, but it's become pretty clear in the last week or so that Xhaka's time at Arsenal is pretty much up. Obviously, the incident at Palace compounded.
Yeah, it does that. But the thing is about Lacazette and Aubameyang, I remain doubtful about both of them. I think they are good players. I don't think they are great players, either of them. And
I think you're on your own with that, though. I think you're on your own with that.
I don't think I am. I don't think there is a team in the top 4 who would want those two swapped with their strikers.
Well, no, in terms of form, possibly not. But in terms of the calibre of the player, then I think quite a few people would disagree. But look, the transfer rumour is Granit Xhaka leaving, going back to Borussia Mönchengladbach, being swapped with Denis Zakaria, who is kind of a similar player to where we bought Xhaka from in the first place, because we thought Xhaka was this combative box-to-box midfield player, and Zakaria is probably that with a bit more energy. But what I wanted to talk about is that the board have come out and said that they accept Emery's form isn't good, and they've basically given him a month to turn. So they've given him the Christmas period to turn his job around and keep the job. But they've also said that they believe results will turn the atmosphere, and which I don't believe with. I don't feel with just Edu and Rasulini there's enough ambition at the club to get us back.
Well,
with the Kroenke still at the top.
Let's have a look at who do they play next in Arsenal?
Southampton.
Well, if they don't win that convincingly, then there's a problem.
Well, yeah, I definitely think we'll have to win that convincingly, because they're a team struggling massively at the moment. And of course they'll need this international break as well, and what the international break does bring is agents talking, and what Torreira's agent has come out and said, they've said that they've no problem with Arsenal because they have great respect for what we've done for his career, but Bentancur, his agent, has basically said he's not happy in his new position, Torreira, which I would agree totally with.
Yeah, you've been consistent about that. You said that they're playing in the wrong position. He's not. We're not seeing the best of him. But if you look at that midfield, I mean, Guendouzi as well. I mean, at times he looks a fantastic prospect. Other times he looks like a little lad.
He has to learn, because he is a bit reckless and immature now. But his quality on the ball, and he does try to do everything. And I think he has, at times this season, has had to carry the midfield when there's been no real system and structure in there, and there's been no identity. But I I think Emery's time, personally, is up at Arsenal, and I think a lot of fans would back that up. So I'd say there's about 7 or 8 managers that could do a better job than Emery is now. The flip side is what will the Arsenal fans do if Emery does start to turn things around? But I think if you look, obviously, Brendan Rodgers at Leicester City, the pros of him.
Get him. They can't get.
The pros of him is he's a proven record. I've just got a notification saying Tottenham sacked Maurizio Pochettino.
Really?
They've just sacked Pochettino.
Wow. Well, I mean, that is an amazing. We were talking about that just a few moments ago.
Wow.
And now that really does open up because they must have somebody in mind. Who do they think they may have in mind?
Well, this is who they will have in mind. There's a guy called Julian Nagelsmann at RB Leipzig, who is a very exciting coach with a vision and a young, exciting perspective of the game. Very good man management in terms of that, and he's got a good, attractive style, and he looks very impressive. Leipzig are top of the Bundesliga at the moment, as recording this. So they're definitely looking at him, as are Arsenal, and I would be delighted if we got him. There's also people like Allegri, Rodgers, people like that, and Luis Enrique, who has gone back to the Spain job, and you have the Ajax manager, Ten Hag. All of these people you take ahead of Emery, and Nagelsmann probably him or Max Allegri at the 4. People like Emmanuel Petit have said they want an Arsenal legend at the 4 of it again. You have people like Lundberg, Arteta, Vieira, Henry, who's gone to Montreal, Impact. I think there's a solution to take, and if we have ambition, we need to take that now.
Yeah, Arteta, I would think, will be starting to think, look at Man City, we're struggling a little bit at the moment. I'm not ever going to get the number 1 job, at least for the next few years, unless Guardiola gets sacked. So why not have a go at Arsenal? Yes, I would agree with that.
I just really hope Arsenal can turn this around. Lacazette and Tierney have come out and said they're working very, very hard. I really hope they are. But we've been talking about the lack of identity at Arsenal. And you look at teams. Let's take most of the top 6 teams. Let's exclude Tottenham and Man United. But if you look at Chelsea, they're progressive. Liverpool have bags of energy. City have good technique. And Sheffield have a spirit and a system. And we try to be a defensive side, but we can't defend.
Agreed.
We've conceded the 3rd most shots, and Leno, who, although I don't think he's made wonder saves, has still made the most saves, 49.
He's a decent goalkeeper.
And finally, to finish off this Arsenal extravaganza, Tony Adams has come out and said how Ozil is the icing on the cake for Arsenal, but Arsenal don't have a cake.
Good quote.
Which I think is a very good quote. He has been quoted as a luxury, Ozil, but I think when we're as despondent and we lack creativity as much as we do, it's a no doubt that he has to play. So in terms of Premier League, that's all we're going to cover today. Finally on football, England hitting 7 at Montenegro and 4 at Kosovo. There's Rashford has come out and said their attack is frightening, and there's a lot of competition in terms of the team at the moment, in terms of the goalkeeper. Do you give it to Pickford, who's been there for a while, or do you give it to Nick Pope, who's done extremely well at Burnley this season so far, or even someone like Dean Henderson or Tom Heaton? I personally would give it John Pickford just because of the experience there. Maybe a Pope or Henderson will flourish in the next couple of years, changing Southgate's mind at the 2020 Euros.
I think one thing that you have to say about it, and I have been consistent in this, as you know, for the last 2 years, is that I think Southgate's done a fantastic job there. The team absolutely love him. He was strong about Sterling. I think that they will go through. I think they are the kind of side who can go all the way. They can win the Euro Championships next year because, of course, the games are going to be over here. The key matches, semi-final and final.
It's so hard because there's so many very good teams at the moment.
Yeah, Netherlands, Spain, Germany, Italy.
You can go through so many. And the big question for England is who is going to partner Harry Maguire at centre-back. Even if Harry Maguire plays, you might go, Mings and Joe Gomez, but you probably would play Maguire. And is it Gomez or Mings who gets the nod? We've got 2 great fullbacks. in Chilwell and Arnold, and you can play Wan-Bissaka there. Kyle Walker can't even get in the squad. And then in terms of the midfield, it's probably shaping up to be one of the most talented, not the best, but one of the most talented England midfields since the Scholes, Lampards and Gerrards, when you have Henderson, who is very good at his role and understands what he has to do, with Chamberlain having a resurgence now, and you have people like James Maddison and Harry Winks, who I don't really rate, but you have a lot of depth in there. And then up front, you can have Rashford, Sterling, Kane, Sancho, Callum Wilson.
So much to look forward to, isn't there?
So, to finish it off, the podcast, we're going to quickly cover a preview of their Test series in New Zealand. They won the T20 series in a much rotated side on a super over again. And the tests are coming up. People like Dominic Sibley, who was the only county championship batsman to get over 1,000 runs last year, to open with Rory Burns. Root's going to be batting at 4. And just hopefully with Silverwood as the coach, we can just pick up more and more momentum and get us a more, not in terms of compact, but in terms of the team selection, but just a better all-round Test match side.
Yeah, I think so. There's not much wrong with our team, actually. We're just about there. We've got a very good attack. Archer, of course, is going to be, at the forefront of our wicket taking for many, many years to come. You've still got Brody, who's still doing the business. Anderson is not finished yet by any stretch of the imagination.
And the questions are if Jack Leach can finally really step up and make his name, cement himself in the side.
And just hope Johnny Bairstow is not forgotten. He won't be.
Yeah. He has been called up.
Yeah.
He needs to get another.
He needs to get another Test match.
Well, I don't think he'll definitely start the first Test.
No, he won't start the first.
Which obviously Johnny will be not very happy.
No, he won't.
And in the past he hasn't taken this well.
He will feel as if he's been let down, because he's not been a disaster batting. He's got 30s, and I know that in Test match cricket is not enough, but I don't think he's ever let England down at all. He certainly hasn't let them down in the one days. And a wicketkeeper, he's been very, very solid.
As long as he keeps his head down and goes and works, because
he will.
We know the talent that he has and how good he can be for England.
Absolutely. So this podcast today has shown you what I think we're all about. Not only do we tell you it straight, but when there's breaking news, we give you it as well. The breaking news
honestly,
being...
I can't believe that.
Tottenham Hotspur have sacked their manager.
Mauricio Pochettino. I can't quite believe that, to be honest. I was just saying how I didn't think Levy would sack him, but there's a quote there's a quote set here saying, very disappointing results, which is true, but I didn't think they'd part ways this early. I think they'd give him the winter break. But I don't think you can, looking at it now, you can't really blame them, can you? Because they have been very, very bad.
You can guarantee they've got somebody lined up. Enjoy your sport, we do.
Thank you very much.